Elon Musk stood at the podium, his fingers drumming lightly on the surface as he scanned the crowd. The lights in the auditorium were bright, but his thoughts were on the future. On SpaceX, on colonizing Mars, on artificial intelligence. These were the things that consumed his mind. The crowd was captivated, listening intently as he spoke about the next great leap for humanity, the technological marvels he hoped would reshape the world. In the front row, a boy no older than 12, sat with his hands tightly clasped together. His eyes, wide and curious, never strayed from Musk, even as the billionaire spoke of interplanetary travel. The boy was different from the other attendees who seemed more focused on the presentation. His gaze was intent on something deeper, a question itching at the edges of his mind. His name was Jonah, and though his outward appearance was calm, there was an unmistakable curiosity burning within him. Finally, after a long pause in the lecture, Jonah could stand it no longer. He raised his hand. Musk's gaze shifted toward him, recognizing the rare gesture in a sea of businesspeople and scientists. "Yes?" he asked, his voice calm but intrigued. The boy was already standing, a slight but noticeable tremor in his hands. "Mr. Musk," Jonah began, his voice clear but tentative. "What do you think about the devil?" The question hung in the air like a heavy weight. The room fell eerily silent. Musk blinked, surprised by the sudden shift from space exploration to theology. Jonah had asked the question with such earnestness that it seemed to echo in the quiet space. There was no laughter, no chuckles, just the expectant silence of everyone in the room waiting for Musk's reply. Jonah looked up at Musk, his eyes wide with expectation. He wasn't sure why he asked it. Maybe it was the deep questions of the universe that had been swirling in his mind for weeks. Maybe it was the way the world seemed to spin out of control in recent times, and he wanted to understand how someone like Musk, who shaped the future, saw such things. Musk paused. He wasn't sure what to say at first. He had dealt with rockets, electric cars, AI and Mars, but the devil? It wasn't a topic he ever expected to face. His mind raced, his usual confidence momentarily faltering. "Interesting question," Musk finally said, his voice soft, but the crowd leaned in, waiting for an answer. Little did they know the response Musk was about to give would change everything. The room seemed to grow quieter, the weight of Jonah's question lingering in the air like an invisible fog. All eyes were on Elon Musk now. His fingers rested lightly on the podium, his gaze distant as if lost in thought. For the first time during his entire presentation, the audience could sense uncertainty from the man known for his groundbreaking ideas. The atmosphere was charged, a strange mix of anticipation and tension filling the space. Jonah stood there, his eyes locked on Musk, waiting. His question had been simple, innocent even, yet it had turned the atmosphere electric. The boy's heart raced as he hoped he hadn't just ruined the moment. His curiosity had led him to ask, but now, seeing the shift in Musk's demeanor, he wasn't sure if it was the right moment. Musk's brow furrowed slightly as he weighed his words. The room felt like it had paused in time, holding its breath. The vastness of his knowledge, of his many accomplishments, seemed suddenly inadequate in the face of such a philosophical question. A question that, despite the high-tech future he often talked about, seemed rooted in something ancient, something no one could engineer or innovate their way out of. The seconds stretched on as Musk glanced out at the crowd, his mind working through the possible answers. He had dealt with engineers, visionaries, and inventors in his life, but none of them had ever posed such a direct, unsettling question. The concept of the devil was a human construct, something tied to belief and religion, something intangible. Musk was a man of science, space, and technology. How could he possibly answer in a way that made sense to everyone? Jonah's voice broke the silence again, softer this time. I just want to understand what you think about it," he said, his hands now nervously fidgeting. Musk nodded, a slight smile forming on his face. The moment seemed to pass, the weight lifting as he returned his attention to the boy. "Okay," he said, his voice steady now. "That's a very interesting question. A deep one." For a brief moment, the crowd relaxed as if they knew they were about to witness something far beyond a simple answer. A ripple of excitement surged through the room. Some people shifted in their seats, leaning forward. Others exchanged glances, intrigued by what would come next. Musk took a deep breath, and the crowd's anticipation reached its peak. Whatever he said next was sure to be remembered, not just as an answer but as a revelation. The room fell into an almost palpable stillness as Elon Musk began to speak, his voice steady, yet carrying an unexpected depth. It was clear this wasn't going to be a typical, offhand reply. He had given countless speeches on technology, artificial intelligence, and space exploration, but now, faced with a question about the devil, Musk seemed to step into a new territory, a realm of thought beyond his usual scientific framework. The devil, Musk began, looking directly at Jonah, isn't just some mythical figure or symbol of evil as many people think. It's something far more complex. It's a reflection of humanity's own fears. He paused for a moment, letting the words settle in. Jonah stood, frozen, the weight of Musk's words already beginning to shift something inside him. Musk continued, his tone contemplative. The devil in many ways is a manifestation of the unknown, of the things we can't control or predict. Think about it. When we're on the verge of something groundbreaking, whether it's launching a new technology or exploring space, there are always voices of doubt, voices that warn us of impending disaster. Those voices are often driven by fear of the unknown. That's what the devil represents. The part of humanity that resists change, progress, and the unknown because it can't see what lies beyond. The crowd was silent, hanging on every word. They had expected something sensational or controversial, but this wasn't that. Instead, Musk was offering something far deeper. A perspective on evil not as an external force, but as an internal one, deeply tied to human nature. It was a thought-provoking twist on a question many would have laughed off or dismissed. Jonah's eyes widened. He had expected some flippant remark, maybe a joke about how technology was the new devil or a philosophical rant about morality. But this was something different. Musk was talking about the essence of human fear, something Jonah had never fully considered. Evil, Musk went on, doesn't come from some devil in a fiery pit. It comes from within us. It's the fear of what we can't understand or control. The devil, in that sense, is part of our nature, always there, lurking at the edge of innovation, progress, and human consciousness. It's not just a figure in a story, it's a force we all face when we push the boundaries of what we know. Jonah felt a chill run through him. The answer was unexpected, almost unsettling, but also strangely comforting. Musk wasn't offering a simple moral lesson. He was revealing something deeper, that the greatest threat was not something external, but the fear and resistance within humanity itself. And just like that, the room fell into a new kind of silence. The audience was left stunned, reflecting on the layers of Musk's answer. Jonah, too, was lost in thought, his mind racing as the implications of what Musk had just said began to sink in. This wasn't just an answer, it was a whole new way of seeing the world. And it was only the beginning. Jonah stood there, his body trembling slightly, still processing the weight of Elon Musk's words. The room around him seemed to blur for a moment as his thoughts swirled. He had come to this event expecting to hear about rockets, artificial intelligence, and the future of humanity. He had never imagined that a simple question about the devil would unravel something so profound, so unsettling. But now, standing in front of Musk, he felt as though the world had shifted. As Musk finished speaking, Jonah didn't immediately respond. Instead, he looked down at his hands, trying to absorb the meaning of what he had just heard. The idea that evil wasn't a tangible, external force but a reflection of human fear, something born out of ignorance and resistance, resonated deeply with him. He had always been taught that the devil was an external, almost mythical entity, something to be feared, something outside of himself. But Musk's perspective was different. It suggested that evil wasn't just a force to battle, but a part of the human condition. Musk noticed Jonah's quiet contemplation. "Do you understand what I'm saying?" he asked, his voice softer now as though guiding the boy through his thoughts. Jonah looked up, meeting Musk's gaze, his mind racing with new questions. I think so," Jonah said hesitantly. "You're saying that the devil is just a symbol of what we're afraid of?" His voice trembled a little, as if the weight of his own realization was just beginning to settle in. Musk nodded slowly, his face thoughtful. "Exactly. It's not about some dark figure lurking in the shadows. It's about the fear we have when we face the unknown. It's the part of us that resists change, progress, or anything that threatens the comfort of what we already know." Jonah's mind raced, the implications of Musk's words unfurling like a web. He had always been afraid of the unknown, of what lay beyond the familiar. But now he wondered, was that fear just the devil's voice in disguise? Was it really the same fear that had driven people throughout history to resist new ideas, new possibilities? Could it be that the greatest challenges humanity faced weren't just external threats, but internal ones? His stomach churned with the weight of the question. It felt as though he was standing at the edge of some profound truth, a truth that could change everything. His view of the world, of people, even of himself. Before he could speak again, a voice from the back of the room interrupted the moment. A woman who had been sitting quietly suddenly stood. Her eyes narrowed and her voice was sharp. "What about the real-world consequences? If fear is the devil, how do we fight it? Musk turned toward the woman, his expression unreadable. Jonah's heart skipped a beat. He could sense that the conversation was about to take a turn, one that would take them all further down the rabbit hole. What Musk would say next could change everything. The woman's question hung in the air, demanding an answer. The crowd shifted uncomfortably, murmurs rising as everyone's attention turned toward Elon Musk once again. Jonah, still caught in his whirlwind of thoughts, glanced around the room. Something had changed. The atmosphere had shifted from philosophical pondering to something more charged, more secretive. People's eyes darted around, some looking uncertain, others deep in thought. Musk took a moment, his eyes scanning the room before landing on the woman who had interrupted. His calm demeanor never faltered, but there was something in the way he carried himself now, a subtle change in his posture, a tightening in his jaw, that suggested he knew something the rest of them didn't. It was as if he had anticipated this very moment, the one where the conversation would take a turn toward the uncomfortable truths that had always lurked just beneath the surface. Fighting fear, Musk began slowly, his voice unwavering, is not about slaying a mythical monster. It's about facing the unknown with courage, with the willingness to push beyond what we think we know. But, he paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. What happens when the unknown isn't just a matter of exploration but a matter of power? When what's hidden is not just a concept, but something real? That's where things get complicated. Jonah felt a chill run down his spine. There was something about Musk's words that felt off. It wasn't just the weight of the conversation anymore. There was a hidden layer to Musk's answer, something he wasn't fully revealing, something that had been carefully tucked away. Jonah's pulse quickened as he began to sense it. This wasn't just a philosophical discussion. Musk wasn't just talking about fear or the devil in abstract terms. He was hinting at something far darker, something the crowd hadn't yet realized. As Musk continued, the audience listened intently, but Jonah felt his eyes drawn to a group of people seated in the back. They hadn't made a sound the entire time, their faces neutral, their posture stiff. But Jonah noticed something now. Their eyes were focused entirely on Musk, almost as if they were waiting for him to say the exact thing they wanted to hear. They exchanged glances, silent, purposeful, and Jonah couldn't shake the feeling that they knew more than they were letting on. Suddenly, a voice from the back of the room broke the silence. And if the devil isn't just a concept, the voice called out, cold and calculating, what exactly is it that we're all afraid of? What are you really trying to tell us, Elon? The hairs on the back of Jonah's neck stood up. This was no longer just a conversation about fear. This was something else, something deeper. Musk turned his gaze toward the speaker, his expression unreadable, but Jonah could sense the tension mounting. Something was about to be revealed. Something no one was ready for.